A multi-crore factory shipment rolls up to the loading dock, but the entire production line gets abruptly shut down. And you want to know over what? Exactly 2 rupees. Right, so this absolutely vital shipment arrives, but the vendor's invoice was off by a mere 2 rupee tax rounding error, just 2 rupees. But because of that tiny mismatch, the strict accounting system completely blocked the massive payment. Obviously, the vendor gets furious, halts all future deliveries, and that multi-core production line grinds to an absolute halt. The culprit for all this chaos? Well, the finance team just simply forgot to configure tolerance limits. So what exactly are tolerance limits? Think of them as preset mathematical rules built right into your ERP system. They automatically allow for tiny, totally acceptable differences between the original purchase order and the final invoice. Things like minor tax rounding or small little freight shifts. It's basically a buffer so that your payments don't just get stuck in endless bureaucratic red tape. But then, on the flip side, we have Invoice Blocks. This is literally an automatic digital padlock. It completely freezes the payment the exact second a discrepancy exceeds that safe preset tolerance limit we just talked about. Okay, let's put it like this. Think about paying a 99 rupee taxi fare. If you hand the driver a 100 rupee note, you're usually just going to say, hey, keep the change, right? You're not going to sit there and waste 10 minutes arguing over one single rupee. That right there is your tolerance limit. But if that taxi driver suddenly locks the doors and demands 500 rupees out of nowhere, no way. You refuse to pay and you call for help. That's an invoice block. You happily ignore the pennies, but you absolutely investigate the massive, unexpected gaps. Let's actually look at how this plays out in a real workplace. Take XYZ Limited, for example. Ria orders a batch of steel for 10,000 rupees, but the vendor's invoice arrives at 10,005 rupees. Now, because XYZ Limited smartly set a system-wide tolerance limit of, say, up to 50 rupees, the system just automatically ignores that tiny 5 rupee gap. It perfectly matches the invoice and pays the vendor right on time, keeping the whole supply chain moving smoothly. But what happens when those limits are actually breached? Well, if that same vendor invoice comes in at 11,000 rupees instead, boom, it hits the automatic invoice block. So step 1, the inflated invoice enters the system. Step 2, the system instantly freezes the cash. And step 3, it forces an accounts payable clerk to manually investigate exactly why they are being overcharged by 1,000 rupees. Now, this brings us to a major beginner's myth that we see all the time. People constantly think every single tiny mismatch has to be aggressively investigated. Like if the PO says 100 rupees and the bill says 100 rupees and 1 paisa, they think you have to hold everything, call the vendor, and demand a correction. But here's the mathematical reality. Processing a single invoice costs a company around 500 rupees in employee time and overhead. So wasting an hour of a salaried accountant's time to investigate a 1 rupee difference, you are quite literally losing the company money. And that brings us to the auditor's eye. For us, the ultimate red flag is something called the tolerance creep. This is a super dangerous scenario, and it usually happens when lazy accounts payable managers just get totally burned out from investigating blocked invoices day after day. So, to make their own jobs easier, they secretly log in and just widen the tolerance limit in the system. We're talking about jumping it from a safe 50 rupees to a highly risky 5,000 rupees. And you can guess what happens next. Suddenly, corrupt vendors realize they can quietly overcharge the company by 4,999 rupees on every single bill. The system will just automatically pay it without throwing up a single warning. And guys, that is exactly why auditors strictly test ERP configurations, just to ensure these limits are locked down tight. So, to wrap up this explainer, remember this core philosophy. Ignore the pennies, but strictly investigate the massive gaps. Now, I'm going to leave you with this. If a lazy manager secretly changed your company's tolerance limits to 5,000 rupees this morning, how much cash would bleed out before anyone even noticed? Think about that, and we'll see you in our next explainer.